are attending with the students. The School of Interdisciplinary Research and Graduate Studies in the College of Graduate Studies welcomes you to this Turnitin training workshop. Let me also extend my welcome to our facilitator, Erica. Good morning and welcome. Colleagues in the Turnitin department, Premises Sinyane, good morning, sir. And colleagues in the school, Samu Makanye, who is our school administrator, good morning. Before I hand over to our esteemed facilitator, feel free to put your comments or questions on the chat and they will be attended to. The recordings as well as the presentation will be emailed immediately after this workshop. I'm now handing to our facilitator, Erica, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Good morning, colleagues and attendees. Also, a kind welcome from my side to this presentation. Please be advised that this presentation is specifically for our master's and doctorate students across the university. I also welcome any supervisors in attendance. Kindly be reminded that for supervisors, we do have a separate training session in this regard, as our focus here today would be for our students specifically. Okay. So first and foremost, Turnitin originality. Turnitin originality is the product that was acquired by UNISA for review of student work to guard against academic misconduct, which would include plagiarism and ghostwriting. But it also serves to encourage academic integrity, original work, and to help protect student intellectual property that is generated in the time of study at the university. Regarding plagiarism, plagiarism is not tolerated at UNISA, not at all. So please be mindful that you have to be cognizant of the content of the policy for copyright infringement and plagiarism. This is available to you online. Also read this together with the UNISA stance on academic integrity, as well as the rules of conduct and the M&D procedures. If you have read this policy before, I do urge you to read it again and make sure that you are aware of the content. These policies are very often updated and adjusted over time to accommodate new needs in respect of academic integrity. So how does Turnitin work? How does it function within the university? So at UNISA, we have integrated the Turnitin with the My UNISA platform. So there's no separate instance anymore for the Turnitin. It is part and parcel of the institution's learning management system. So when you are going to submit your work to My UNISA, an originality report will run automatically. To understand how this works, we send you a welcome notice from the UNISA Turnitin team after registration. So this happens when you register at UNISA. For example, when you start out with your master's or doctorate studies, you are doing it for the first time this year. If there are any students present in this session that come from previous years, let's say you already started your work in 2023 or even before that, you would also be accommodated within this new platform within My UNISA. And you are going to remain within this specific space on My UNISA for the duration of your study. So whether it takes you 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years to complete the qualification, all your communications will be sent to you via the My Life email address. That is the formal communication method of the university. So it is extremely important that you visit this mailbox regularly and check your inbox, check the junk mail folder or spam folder, just to make sure that any communications landed up there accidentally, so that you can review that, because the welcome notice will give you necessary details. For instance, it will give you the link to go to the My Modules login site. You can also go straight to the My UNISA site and you are going to click on log in to My Modules. So when you log into My Modules, you will see that on your list of module codes, there would be a special dedicated space for Turnitin, which speaks to your research that you are going to do. So for example, in that submission space, you will see your college acronym. If you are in the College of Human Sciences, just as an example, it would say CHS, College of Human Sciences, M&D Turnitin 2024 currently is what is displayed because this is your first year within this platform and this is where you are going to stay. So when you continue with your studies next year, you would still go on within that exact same space. You're not going to move to a different space. And what we have done is we allowed for your various options for the whole scope of your dissertation or your thesis that you would be submitting. Okay. Please be advised if there are any master students who do coursework masters, you would have separate modules for your coursework and they would function like regular module codes. Turnitin would be applied by your respective supervisors or lecturers in that regard where it is deemed necessary. It is only the research component that would be accommodated within this M&D Turnitin option. Okay. If you are doing a full research master's dissertation, obviously you would be within that M&D Turnitin space, and all doctorate students would be in the M&D Turnitin space. Okay. A warning before I continue. This is a warning of protection for you and your own intellectual property. You need to make sure that you submit your work yourself within the formal UNISA submission space only. In other words, on My UNISA, where you're going to log in using your My Life email credentials to access that, please do not upload your work in duplicate. It will compromise your originality reports. In other words, you are not going to give your work to a friend or a colleague or a family member or within your own institution. That is considered unethical because it would infringe on the integrity of the institutional account, and it will be to your detriment when we run the final originality check of the submission, so that we can protect your authorship. So please do not submit your work in duplicate. Only submit it within the formal space. We have made accommodations for you for a draft, a revision, and a final option that I will explain shortly. So please be mindful in this regard. Okay. When you upload for the very first time within My UNISA where Turnitin is required, it is going to give you a little pop-up notice and ask you to accept the Turnitin EULA. This is the end user license agreement, and this is very important. You do need to accept this, and this will serve also to protect your submissions with your profile. We have something that is built in. It's called authorship recognition, and that is how we protect your intellectual property within this space. It will also assist us in identifying if anybody in future would try and plagiarize from your work. So you will click on the orange button that says I accept the Turnitin EULA. So it's already highlighted, but you do need to click on it to accept that, and then you will get a nice pop-up to say thank you for accepting the Turnitin EULA. And that little note will also be a reminder for any subsequent submissions that you are going to make within My UNISA where Turnitin was applied, and you will be reminded that no need to do this again. It is already accepted. Okay, so it is the nice thing. You just have to do this once. Then we come to the uploads. Okay, for your master's and doctorate files that you are going to upload, you need to upload them in Microsoft Word, specifically the .docx format. This is going to serve you very well going forward in future with new additional features that we are going to add within the Turnitin space. Now, there are requirements on how you would prepare your work for it to be uploaded in my UNISA. So it is slightly different. For those of you who use the old platform, the new platform is a bit more streamlined, and you are going to upload your proposal comprehensively as well as your completed dissertation or thesis. So this would mean for your proposal, you need to include the title page or the front pages, okay, in your submission. This will help to protect your authorship. It needs to include your name, your student number, qualification details, your declaration, index, abstract, etc. All of those initial pages that would be required, as well as the bibliography or your list of references that would serve as confirmation of the content within your specific submission, so that we do have an all-inclusive and a comprehensive report for the proposal. The same is valid for your completed dissertation or thesis, which you are going to upload at the end of your study, when you've completed your research and you are ready for the final examination to obtain the qualification that you've worked so hard for. Okay, so that would be a complete submission of everything that would serve the examination process. However, for the interim, when you are going to work on your chapters, okay, when you upload your chapters, you are not going to include the front pages. You are not going to include your bibliography or your reference list, only the content of the chapter itself. But we ask that you include at the top of the chapter just a heading with your name, your student number, a short title, and the date that you're uploading. So you can just put it in a small table above the chapter 1 heading, or whichever chapter that you are going to upload, or just one line typed out would also be fine, because this is an additional method in which we can protect your authorship within that specific space, and it also makes for ease of reference. So when you do discuss your submission, the report findings, etc., with your supervisor, that those details are on hand when your supervisor opens the submission, that they would immediately recognize it, know, okay, this was chapter 1 draft, or the final, and when you have uploaded it. Okay, so you would, from this specific mission, not have your bibliography or list of references. However, any in-text citations still remain. Any acknowledgements, references within the body of the chapter, those would remain. Okay, it's just that you do not need to add a list at the bottom. Okay, and then very important, your submissions are stored permanently. That means when you do upload, okay, we make a copy that we reserve within the Turnitin account that we are going to use to protect your intellectual property. So do make sure that when you upload, that the format and layout of your submission is correct, that you've selected the correct option. If this is the first time that you are going to upload chapter 1, then it would go to the draft option, and that's where you would upload it. Let's say you've uploaded chapter 1 draft. Now you've discussed it with your supervisor, you've received advice and guidance on how to rework the content, improve on content, amendments that might be needed, or additional information that should be part of chapter 1. You can rework that within your original document. And then when you are ready and your supervisor is in agreement with the revised content, you come back and then you upload chapter 1 revision. Okay, so you've revised your original draft, and now you're going to upload the revised document, and Turnitin will generate a fresh report for you. Also, in addition, if it need be, then you can still make a few changes before you upload the final option for the specific chapter. Okay, whereby it will again generate a fresh report for you. And I do know that you would already worry, or some of you might worry, that wouldn't it compromise my originality report findings if I do a draft, a revision, and a final? No. That is why we have the authorship recognition, so that we can ensure that we see that this is your work that is in progress. In other words, there will be no conflicts in your reports that would look as if you plagiarized yourself. Okay, so that is not going to happen. Okay, the Turnitin structure within UNISA is set up to protect that intellectual property, to recognize your authorship, and we can assist within that specific space. Okay. So now what happens to your document? How does it generate the report? When your document is received, it is sent to Turnitin by my UNISA, and when it comes to Turnitin, it will be compared to a database. So this database consists of different categories. The one of note is, of course, also it is the largest international student paper repository. It comprises of not only UNISA submissions, but also submissions from other universities in South Africa. The majority of Africa also makes use of Turnitin, as do thousands of institutions on the other continents as well. So it takes the submission, it takes the text in that submission, and it compares to the database, and then it compiles an originality report by identifying the non-original content within the submission. Please, this is not a plagiarism report. Do not refer to that as a plagiarism report, because that is not what Turnitin does. It generates a report of originality. It is going to check the integrity of the submission and identify original authored content within the specific submission as a matter to guard against academic misconduct in that effort. But the findings is an originality report. It is not a plagiarism report. The process is straightforward. You just go into My UNISA, you select a specific option under your Turnitin space, and you submit your work. And then it will be sent to Turnitin. Turnitin will generate the report, and then it will be attached to your submission. Now, UNISA has requested that we allow 48 hours for this specific space or for the duration of the process to be completed, because remember, you need to upload to My UNISA. My UNISA then sends it to Turnitin. Turnitin processes it, and when it is ready, UNISA then collects and attaches to your submission. So that should happen within a 48-hour window. Okay. If there's any concern, please alert your supervisor if your report is not visible after 48 hours. Okay, so it will be attached, and the way that you will know that your report is complete is there will be a little block with your similarity index that is going to be displayed, and that is how you're going to access it. There is also detail in this regard in the frequently asked questions list that will be sent to you as well. We also attach that to the welcome notice, and it is included on the CGS website for your convenience, where you can go and access that. Okay. So once a report is generated, it would be available to you as well as your supervisor. That is very nice, because if you are in contact with your supervisor, you can view this simultaneously. Okay. As I've explained on the previous slide, we provide you with an option to do a draft, a revision, as well as a final upload. This is for your proposal as well as for every chapter that you are going to write. However, for your last upload, the final upload that you are going to do for examinations, there is only one upload option. The reason being, it serves only as formality because all of your chapters would already have gone through the Turnitin process. So we just require one final comprehensive, all-inclusive report at the end of the study that would serve the examination process for your dissertation or thesis. Okay, this is just an example of what you might see. If the report is not displayed, there would always be a little message or a note. For instance, when you have just uploaded, it will say queued. Queued is not an error. Okay, please be patient in this regard. This is not an error. It means it is queued. It will be sent to Turnitin. Okay, it could potentially also say pending, or it might come back and it will give you a message. If it says report unavailable, for example, there will be a blue encircled question mark, and you can click on that question mark to get a little speech bubble to tell you why the report is not available. Okay, and this might be due to the fact, let's say, if the file was seen as corrupted for whatever reason, then it would not give you a report, or if there's any other type of concern with the file itself. If this does happen, please check on your file requirements, please check on the file itself and ensure that it does comply with the MyUnisa requirements. Okay. This is an example of how it would look if you've submitted your work. There would be attached to it a percentage in a color-coded block, which is your similarity index, and that is how you will know that your report is complete. You can open the report by simply clicking on the similarity index itself, and it will open it for you in a new window for the browser that you are using. A tip that I can give you here, the best browsers to use for Turnitin is either Firefox or Chrome to open your work in. Okay, then the report findings. Because this is a report of non-original content, it identifies different matches in the database. It will highlight everything that is not original. So that would include copy text. If you use discipline-related terminology, that might be included. Any names or titles, direct quotes, items in bibliographies, references, or your citations in the text. If you've used templates or AI writing, might be identified within this specific submission. Please note, it highlights everything that's not original, but it does not necessarily mean that it is a concern. You do not have to go and change everything. Okay, it can also serve as a confirmation. For instance, if you do a quote, the highlight can confirm the proper and correct manner in which the quote was included within the content, if due acknowledgement was given to the source, etc. Names and titles that you're going to use, those you cannot change. Okay, so please be mindful in that regard. And remember that it does not accuse you of plagiarism. Turnitin cannot accuse the author or the content of plagiarism. Okay, it only identifies non-original content, and therefore it is called a similarity report, or with a similarity index, or a report of non-original content. All right. Apologies for that. Okay, your originality report. Here with just an example, please note that you can only see a portion of this report. And this is similar to what you are going to view when you open your originality report. On the left-hand side will be the content of your submission, highlighted in different colors, different portions of the text. Every highlight will have a little number to it. Now, in my example here, let's take a quick look at number 1. So everything highlighted in blue throughout the whole of my document and marked with a little number 1 would mean that they match source number 1 in the column on the right-hand side. So on the left, we can see my number 1 there. There's one of the blue portions. If I were to scroll down through this whole document, I would see other examples as well, where text was matched to source number 1. Okay. And then I will see there is an individual percentage for this specific match that says 26%. That means all of the little number 1s throughout the whole of this document, everything highlighted in blue, amounts to 26% of the content of the submission. So it tells me that 26% from the content of the submission on the left matches source number 1. But the report must be duly analyzed by the supervisor or lecturer to identify whether there is actual plagiarism present within this document. It does not mean that there is plagiarism. It simply tells us there is those portions of text are matched to a specific source. Okay, so you will see, okay, I don't have on this view of anything for number 2, but there is an example for number 3 where we can see it is highlighted in purple, marked with a little number 3. In other words, everything throughout my document highlighted in purple, marked with a number 3 would mean it matches source number 3, and source number 3, the individual percentage says 15%. In other words, all of the matches within this content, highlighted in purple, marked with a little number 3, mean that they match number 3 and it amounts to 15% of the content. And you will see it decreases down when you go down your list. The highest match will always be first. And for this, we provide you with a guideline. Okay, so your guideline for an individual match is 5%. This means that any of these individual matches need to be less than 5% each. So clearly, my number 1, the 26%, is way above the 5% guideline. Even my number 4 that peaks out here at the bottom, it says 9%. This is still way above the 5% guideline. So each one needs to be at least less than 5%. So the reason for the 5% is I think that some of the supervisors especially might be alarmed that this is a very wide guideline. It is indeed a very wide guideline, but we do set this wide guideline for you so that it will accommodate for subject terminology, names and titles, prescribed templates that are given, or incidental matches to subject jargon being used, etc., within the specific document. However, it just does not necessarily mean that if it's less than 5%, it is fine. One still needs to review that there's no overutilization of one specific source or an excessive use of quotes, for example, because the focus would always remain on delivering original content. Also note that your individual matches listed here on the right-hand side, they are not cumulative to your overall similarity index. And then the big question that everybody always has is what percentage is acceptable? And you will see that acceptable has been striked through, and this is on purpose because there is no such thing as an acceptable percentage. The report itself must be reviewed and analyzed. The reason why there is no so-called acceptable percentage, especially for the similarity index, is because of UNISA's stance towards plagiarism and other forms of academic misconduct. It actually doesn't matter what your similarity index is. This means you could have a similarity index that appears to be low, let's say it's 12% or 10%. And when that report is analyzed and academic misconduct is identified, like plagiarized portions of text within that submission, it will be unacceptable, regardless of what the value is of the similarity index. But you could potentially also have a document of, let's say, 20% on the similarity index, but the report is analyzed and everything can be verified, everything is acknowledged within the document, and there are no instances of blatant plagiarism within the content, then that 20% could be acceptable. Okay, so there are specific guidelines, there are specific parameters, and your supervisors are trained in this regard so that they are able to assist you to address certain matters within your document, and to help you to deliver original work, and in which would mean that academic integrity is then built. So please always remember, your supervisor is looking for your voice in the content. If the supervisor reads this, the supervisor needs to hear your voice. So use your quotes sparingly, paraphrase in your own words, and of course, whenever in doubt, cite your sources always. Okay, the focus is not to reduce the percentage. The focus is to deliver original work, and we give you the guideline of the 5% rule for your individual matches. So that will also assist to protect you so that you do not accidentally overutilize a specific source that could potentially also infringe on copyright of that source. So when you are mindful of these guidelines, they will serve you well in producing your work. Please note, do not struggle on your own with the report. Your report is to be analyzed by your lecturer or your supervisor, who is a specialist in the specific field, and they would review all of the findings within your submission. It is not necessary to rework every single highlighted portion of text. Please do discuss the findings with your supervisor. This is a journey that you need to take together. There are certain conditions where specific percentages could be acceptable, where something was prescribed, etc. And therefore you need to be in communication with your supervisor regarding the academic content. Okay. For further content support, consult your subject librarian or your personal librarian at the UNISA library. They can guide you where you can get more information. The LibGuides online also has very valuable resources that would assist with research ethics, academic integrity, and referencing styles. It is very important that you also use the correct referencing style. Okay, when you acknowledge the different sources that you did consult for your study or your research that you are conducting to achieve this qualification. So make sure that you do know who your personal librarian is. They are most valuable to you during your time of study at UNISA. And this has brought me to the end of the presentation. I thank you very much for being in attendance, with best wishes from the UNISA Turnitin team. Program Director, I apologize. I went 3 minutes over time, but we can have a quick look at some of the questions if there are any that were not addressed within the presentation.
Thank you very much, Erica. No, I think you were on time. That is fine. There were some comments and questions in the chat. So regarding accessing the recording, we will send you this presentation and the recording. There was a question from Faith. They want to know if they can delete the Turnitin level, for example, revision. I think if you can check maybe on the chat.
Okay. Regarding delete, no. Delete is not an option. That is why I specifically emphasize that students do need to make sure that they have the correct version of the work when they do upload, and henceforth they are provided with a draft, a revision, and a final option, so that they have the opportunity to learn from that specific process. Please, they do need to understand that this is not a debugging exercise. If there is a specific incident, they can contact us and we can review that specific submission, but delete is not an option. Okay, because it would compromise the integrity of the database. We have to uphold that integrity so that we can ensure the protection of our students' intellectual property going forward. I'm just looking at the chat. Sorry.
Thanks.
I
There's also
want
this
to
one from Miami. They want to know about submitting the bibliography because it increases the percentage. Your view on that?
Thank you, Tony. No, I would advise maybe the student joined late, that for the bibliography or reference list is only included for the proposal and the completed thesis or dissertation, not for the chapters. And I would also like to add to that, it is a fallacy that the reference list or bibliography unduly influences the similarity index. And that is simply not true, because it gives confirmation of the content. It has a minimal influence, and if the student would review the recording of this presentation, the student would hear that, remember, this is a similarity index, and it is not about reducing the overall similarity index. It is to produce original content in the submission. We do not look at the similarity index, but rather only at the individual sources. Thanks.
Thank you, Erica. There's one from Lucia. They are following through and they can download the report, but they just want to know where this digital report that they want, where is it located?
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for that question. This probably stems from students who already started last year or the year before. There is a change within the new platform. The digital receipt is currently not separately produced from the originality report. So I would like to put everybody's mind at ease within this specific audience. We also do alert the supervisors to this fact. Within the new platform, there is only one full comprehensive originality report. So there's no separate digital receipt. They will see that also when they obtain the report itself, the first page is going to look slightly different from what it looked before. That would give an overview of the content of the submission. But we do refrain from separating the first page from the content, because the notifications on percentages are meaningless if you do not have the content of the submission. So it is just one complete document. In addition to this, I also would like to add that 99% of the time it is not necessary to download the originality report, because the supervisors as well as the co-supervisors do have direct access online in My UNISA to these reports. So we advise against downloading these reports if it's not extremely necessary to do so. So if there are any concerns in that regard, the student or the supervisor can contact us. But just to put everybody's mind at ease, for the new platform, there is just one comprehensive combined report. So there's no separate digital receipt in that regard. I hope that covers the scope of the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And messages coming through, students thanking you. There's another one. So the students wants to know if the index is more than 5%, will the scientific review consider it?
If the student says 5%, I presume the student refers to the individual source matches. It needs to be less than 5%, but I would suggest discuss it with your supervisor. Okay, there might be a specific instance where there is a specific requirement, but if you work on the content where so that it is less than 5%, it would obviously be to your benefit because it would show already your own personal input into the study or research that you are going to do. Tony, I see there is a note regarding somebody that's struggling with a link. Please be advised, all students are now on the new platform. Okay. Even if you were in the temporary space in 2023 and you are completing this year, you do need to submit your work on MyUnisa. If you are a 2023 student and you have not received your welcome notice, or if you go into MyUnisa and you do not see the Turnitin space, to please write to us so that we can have a look to see why it does not display. But all students are now within the new space. The old platform is closed. Just a little note there for attendees to take note of. Thanks, Donnie.
Thank you, Erica. There was also this one from Refilwe. They are doing master's coursework, so they just want to know. Okay, she's saying, "Good morning. I'm doing a master's by coursework, and may you kindly repeat the sentence regarding Turnitin on them." So I think they can see it, but then after they have clicked on my modules, they seem to be struggling to follow through.
Yeah, thanks, Donnie. Okay, I will explain that. This is a bit of a challenge because there's a differentiation. When a student does a coursework master's, it means that there are, for argument's sake, there are 5 module codes. So there would be 4 module codes, for instance, where the student needs to perform a specific task. Okay, so it is actually coursework that needs to be done. Those module codes would run like regular module codes, like if the students studied with UNISA before on honors, they would just go to the module code and they would upload the assignment or the assessment, and then the originality report will run automatically when Turnitin is applied for that specific assignment in the module code. Okay, so that would be valid for your master's coursework codes as well. So, but please remember, this is an elective by your supervisor or lecturer. So the lecturer will decide for which assignments or assessments in which module codes Turnitin would be applicable, and they select it, and then it will run automatically. The exception for coursework masters would be as the example that I used with the 5 module codes, would be the 5th one that contains the research component. So those research module codes, they will be accommodated in the Turnitin space where it says M&D Turnitin. So that specific module code will be addressed in that space. So we are going to look to see and how we can refine that for our students next year. But for the current academic year, that is where we accommodate them. So the research module where you write your mini dissertation, that would be in the M&D space. And for that, you will also get, like any of the other full research masters, you will get a welcome notice that would advise you that you have been linked to that specific space, and that is where you are going to submit it. I hope that gives a bit more clarity in that specific regard. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Erica. I don't see any questions that are coming in, but what I can do is that we will leave the chat box open, and maybe you can just go back to it. There's a question. Does the Q&A also indicate that digital receipt is no longer produced? Maybe clarity on that, Erica. I know you touched on it. The digital receipts, just a confirmation that they are produced or not.
Okay, no. The digital receipt is no longer produced separately. It is part and parcel of the one full originality report. I will double check the information on the FAQ list as well for the student, yes.
Okay. No, thanks a lot. Erica, thanks a lot for this workshop. I will encourage those who might have some questions to put them on the chat, and maybe when you have time, you can just go again and see how you can respond to that.
All right. Thank you very much for hosting the Turnitin today. I will provide you with a copy of the presentation that you may share with the students, as well as a copy of the frequently asked questions list. Everybody else, have a wonderful day and enjoy the weekend. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Erica, for preparing for this workshop, and to my colleagues, thanks again for assisting in the background, and to you, our student, thank you very much for participating in this workshop. I see Prof. Mbata want to say something before we close. Prof. Mbata, your mic is off.
I was trying to say thank you, and there's no icon for that now. Thank you very much, Erica, and thank you very much to the colleagues who attended this. And students, please note that you have to adhere to what Erica has indicated regarding Turnitin, so that you won't have challenges later, because some of you tend to send your documents to different universities, of which is not allowed, and at the end of the day you are the one who will end up suffering. Please, if you have any queries, the Turnitin office will respond to you, sometimes not within 12 hours, because UNISA is a big university and has many students, but you will get a response. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much, Prof. I guess this is goodbye from us, and all of the best with your studies. Goodbye.